Welcome back to another episode of the Frustrated CEO podcast. My name is Patrick Lyons. I'm one of your co-hosts. I'm here today with two of my favorite colleagues, Leb Tannenbaum. Welcome to you, sir.
Thank you, Patrick. Happy to be here.
Yeah, good to see your face. And our other partner in crime, Patsy Freeman. I'll kick it to you. Welcome to you, and I'll let you introduce our guest for the day.
Thank you. I am most delighted to introduce Amy Rosenberg. Amy is founder and president of Veracity, a modern PR firm. She founded in 2008. They're based in Portland, Oregon. Amy says that before starting Veracity, she learned in the trenches. She worked her way up from intern to management at 2 marketing agencies. And now, as the firm's president, she oversees the blending of digital strategies with classic PR. So we're going to get more to that in just a minute. So with an effort to favorably position her clients both online and in traditional media. Often referring to themselves as a hybrid PR firm, Veracity specializes in B2B, SEO, and e-commerce related to PR, as well as spearheading corporate responsibility initiatives.
Hi.
While she oversees a staff of 8 professionals, that's all right. There's more, woman. I think her passion and focus is leading strategy for her clients.
Maybe. I'm kidding. Maybe, yeah. Or it changes,
Yep. She's been recognized by PR News as a top woman in the PR field and as a thought leader in digital PR, which led her to create her own podcast, PR Talk, in 2017. So I think that's thought leadership. So we may get into that in just a few minutes too, which was sponsored by Public Relations Society of America. She's hosted over 100 episodes, and her episodes are targeted at people in the PR field to help them better learn their craft. Talk about a contribution. I've actually used several of your podcasts as a framework for the work we're doing today.
Oh.
So in addition, driven by our desire to help people develop their PR and marketing skills, and really as a companion resource to the podcast, she wrote A Modern Guide to Public Relations. It's an award-winning book. It's insightful. It's a memoir, part memoir. Now you just keep breathing. And she challenges the PR industry to rethink its approach to PR and marketing. So welcome.
Thank you.
And we're so glad to have you. I think this is, as the digital world continues to explode and expand, I think the more that we can get ourselves kind of focusing grounded on how do we sort through the noise is really important.
Definitely.
So I am most curious what you mean by hybrid PR.
Okay. So first I have to apologize for interrupting you in the intro, and I'll tell you why I did that. It's because I'm the quintessential PR person, which means I don't like to be in the spotlight.
I thought so.
Which is funny that I'm in the spotlight here, but not really. I don't like to talk about myself. But so there's that. So there's a kind of funny faces with that. But I think our job as PR people is to get other people out there, whether it's a person or a company or a cause. But to answer your actual question, so hybrid, well, hybrid is a lot of things for us. The simple answer is just mixing all of the marketing disciplines together, right? And what that is SEO, digital with traditional PR, and then social and marketing. And so there's that. But then also I can look at hybrid as also kind of just a way of being, like it doesn't have to be all about marketing. Is the one thing to remember. Sometimes we can look at our goals and think, what are our goals as a company and how can we get there? And if we're actually going to do marketing, how can we use the marketing to get us to the goals? And so I actually, in all honesty, had trouble preparing for this podcast a little bit because I was just writing down some notes and I was writing marketing. And it's like, I realize I'm a PR person. I have a PR firm and we're supposed to be talking about PR, but sometimes I think PR is irrelevant, right? And I kind of think everything all of the little silos of marketing is irrelevant, and that is just about marketing. And then the marketing is actually about propelling or being behind your business. So the way I kind of am not interested in talking about my business is like I'm just behind, not my firm, whoever, we're behind you, we're pushing you. We are your biggest cheerleaders, which is actually very dangerous for us as PR people, because we always think whatever our clients do is super cool. And sometimes we are also surprised that maybe the press doesn't think it's cool, because we are the biggest cheerleader. We love our clients. So yeah, so hybrid is just everything, I guess.
Well, I love that you're talking about both the disciplines within the field and also the different components of one's business. I was struck when we talked about you saying that you wanted to be at least a year out of where your clients need to be. And it reminds me a lot of the strategic planning work we do with our clients, which is, where do they want to be in the future? So there's a alignment between those two places.
Yeah. So to kind of clarify what we mean for the audience when we talk about being a year out. So in old school PR, which we're not old school, but we are, I can explain that. In old school PR, we literally have to work, let's say 6 months ahead to get something in, let's say, Forbes magazine. Okay. Because, and then this is really actually what my book is about. It's actually more details on kind of what are the rules in PR around those little things. So really big time print magazines out of New York, you have to pitch them 6 months ahead. So what that means is that's kind of hard for people because, well, I can't just like pitch it 6 months ahead. I have to plan ahead. What am I going to pitch? Right. And so I have to kind of get my client on board with that. So that's part of our planning. And that was just the only reason to plan. It used to be for PR. Now, as we've been doing this for a long time, we've been seeing that planning is just helping us kind of do more. Not that we always want to do too much, but it's helping us wrap our heads around some of these concepts where a lot of people get overwhelmed by all the things you're supposed to do in marketing, whether you're a CEO or whatever. It's just like, oh, wait, okay, so TikTok, LinkedIn, this, that, and the other. How do I do it all? Number one, you don't. Let's just not do that. And we'll talk about that. That has to do with audiences and goals. But then let's pretend we actually have to do it all, which is not ideal. We plan ahead. That's the only way we can do it. And we plan ahead in kind of a simple, non-overwhelming way so that it actually gets done. Because if we don't plan, it's just too much for people and they just don't do it. And I think that is kind of my pet peeve, especially with PR. And I can talk about that as well, but it has to do with kind of looking at something and realizing it's actually not that hard. If we could just like get to work a little bit on it.
That's great. It makes me think also, Amy, when we do strategic planning, I mean, some parts of strategic planning might be, what's the 3 to 5 year look? What are some of those goals? But whatever focus the plan has and whatever the pieces of the plan are, what people seem to struggle with the most is the execution of the plan.
Exactly. So
Right.
that's what
I kind of hear in what you're saying, and what we say distinguishes us is that, yeah, we do love our clients as well, but we don't give you the plan and walk away.
Right. Well, so I was telling someone the other day, the plan is literally always in draft form. Like I have to trick myself with language. And so in PR, we have like final docs. That's always going to be final before it goes to the press. But plans can be in draft, and that's how they're labeled. And then what we do is we meet monthly on the plan, which you should too. I mean, so this was going to be one of my tips of what to do is schedule your monthly marketing meetings and then know when they're going to be every month and show up. And so what we've started to do with clients is we just have those standing meetings, and then we have our agenda, which kind of piggybacks off the plan. And then we're just it's just checking. We're just checking, like, is this still right? Well, holding us and our client accountable, because they also have to work with us a little bit to get the thing moving, right? And then we're just checking. And then what we do is the plan changes while we check. So and it changes in a few ways. Either something's not happening and we delete it, fine, easy. Or we see, oh, there's this new opportunity. We're going to add that and we are going to work on it. We're nimble enough as a firm that we can just punt and pivot for our clients. And then the other way that we change it is by looking at the results. And that's kind of a key way to a reason to use digital marketing, which we can talk about. But we look at the results in kind of that way of seeing, like, when were our PR placements, right? Or where were they? Which is kind of cool to look at the location. And then you can look at the location of what's happening on the website or with signups or purchases. If they're out of a specific location, you can say, oh, well, maybe it had to do with this. And again, we never really know, marketing, just like business and planning, a lot of us just go with our gut. And then I also find that my clients know best. And I'm not saying that because the client knows the best as kind of a business thing that you're supposed to say. It's like, no, they really do know what's best because they know their audience, because half the time, or more than half the time, they are the audience, right? Like the business owner is the audience too. Or they interact with the audience. So we rely on really close relationships with the leaders of the company to tell us, like, you know what, I went to this trade show and it did not work. Like, I know you thought that we should go, but I just don't think we should go next year. And then we're saying, okay, that's great. Cause we love a hard no, especially from press or whoever, because then it just makes things easier. We can move on. And then what we can do from there is, you mentioned 3 to 5 year out planning. That's when we can start to see. So like year 1 is almost like a test year. And then we can start to refine. And the world's always changing, right? So we can't just be stagnant.
Sure.
Amy, first of all, thank you for joining us. Appreciate it. This is always interesting to me. When we do strategic planning with a client, there are specific areas that we are making sure we're covering, right? We're spending time talking about the foundation of the business. Who are you? What's your mission? What are the core values? So that the business knows how to show up every day, how to treat each other, how to interact. We're talking about, we're looking at trends. We're talking about how the business wants to be known. We're looking at those 3 to 5 year initiatives and those annual priorities and quarterly rocks. So there are very specific things that maybe not every client goes as deep as some, right? But we're spending time in each of those areas. When you work with a client, a CEO, a company to create a marketing plan, are there specific areas like that okay, we've got to talk about this. We've got to hit this. We've got to hit this. And much to that point, maybe you don't have a lot to put in there now, but I want you to be thinking about this because this is something you haven't thought about before that you should start thinking about now.
Yes, for sure. So all of those things you mentioned. So trends are, well, okay. So first of all, what we really also want to remember for PR is that, or marketing, same thing really, is it's not all about sales. But if it is about sales, that's fine, right? Like we can move on. But we also realize that sales might actually come through having happy staff or effective staff. And then we also realize that PR starts from within because our staff is our spokesperson. And so there's that. So that's internal training if you're talking about spokespeople. But we also want to think about retention and just a happy culture. And oftentimes we use PR as a way, and I didn't really realize we were doing this, but now I'm seeing it. We use PR as a way to make people happy. I'll just say that, meaning maybe they don't even need the placement, right? But we need to connect with this leader because they're doing great and we need to pat them on the back. So we do that through interviewing them and creating a blog post in their voice, or taking it a few steps further, which is placing an article written by them but we write it because it's easier for them. And we place it in the press in their name, and then we move to speaking engagements with these employees. And so I just somebody wrote in my company, wrote a post, I think it was me, about employee-centered PR. So we're in a new age. I think people know that. We don't want to just feature the CEO. And the CEO is really happy about that. I mean, at least our CEOs are, because they're tired and they're like, and some CEOs kind of get to the point where they think, well, this person knows better than I do, so why should I go and talk about it? And now we're in the new age where people are saying, yeah, you're right. Sally should go talk about this instead of you, because they're in the trenches again, to use that phrase. It's very key to be in the trenches. So to be able to talk about something. So we use PR in that way. And I just kind of like accidentally learned that we were doing that by a client literally saying, this is actually helping with our employee engagement. And so it's like, wow, that's kind of a big, pat on the back. And then this client, and you've got to be engaged to see this stuff, right? And then this client also said, we also need staff because we're growing. So what can we do? And so we create news stories around staff. And whenever we have any news story, it could be boring, which I can talk about because news stories, they are boring. We have some kind of boring story saying like, okay, we're doing a new opening. And what I mean by boring is that it's easy to place. So it's not, it's a different way to think about it. It's just like, oh, so easy. I can just place that, well, someone can. And then what we do is we add in the employment hook. And I get really dramatic about this because I want PR people to do this too, because this is what will get coverage, because the press in any local community wants to talk about hiring. If you're looking at business press. So we have a real estate client. So they open offices everywhere. And so we'll do a press release, but then we'll say, how many people do you need? How many would you like to fill in this office? And it's like, it's an exclusive real estate company. So it's like only 5. It's like, okay, great. I have a number and that sounds more real. So I'm going to put that in there. And then I'm kind of killing a few birds at once, if that makes sense. Well, a lot of birds at once, because I'm showing that we're growing, showing that we're reaching other communities, that we can hire, and then I'm helping them hire, because hiring's hard. So that's just hiring, but we definitely need to talk about crisis proactive management, not reactive. And then we want to talk about trends, but trends are also a little reactive, by the way. So when I do some PR when we do PR trends, it's this, I kind of look at PR as like proactive and reactive, and there's nothing bad about being reactive, but in a way, trends are a little bit reactive. Even if my person is, meaning my spokesperson is talking about the future, I'm kind of just reacting to something I know that they're going to talk about. So like, we know that people are going to talk about the economy right around, and looking at the calendar around January. It's not hard to figure that. Like, you just look at the trends, right? They talk about that then. Okay, so what clients do I have that affect the economy? And then what spokesperson do I have that can talk about it? Like, that's just kind of reactive, right? But now, if I want to be proactive, that is where crisis kind of comes in. Where it sounds really weird to say, oh, I have clients that we know there's a crisis coming up. But we do, because we do a lot of manufacturing clients, a lot of B2B and manufacturing. And there's a lot of legislation occurring in Oregon specifically. And so we know that there's some things going on, right? And by law, the client has to do it. So there really shouldn't be any problem, right? But there is, because of people, emotions. We have emotions in our town, right? So we know, well, everywhere there's emotions, and there should be emotions, right? Like, these are hot, very important issues. And we all want to evolve. All of our clients want to grow and be better to the environment. And so they are doing it. And so what we do is we kind of study, what are they doing? and then we put them on a plan to talk about those things, because a lot of clients just, they don't even, well, I was saying the other day, they don't even know how cool they are. So for instance, one client, they've been sending people to college for a long time, right? Like getting college degrees, and they're blue collar manufacturing. I mean, that is huge. That's affecting poverty levels. That's affecting their families, their children. And I said to the CEO, well, this is really great that you're doing this. And she said, it is. It's like, they don't see it because they've been in it for so long, right?
Right.
Mhm.
And so, and not only, they just kind of need like a different perspective. Then they need the spokesperson, because let me tell you, all of our CEOs are very modest. It's so
Mhm.
funny. They do not like to be in the press, by the way. And I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's just our, Oregon or what. I think it's because our CEOs, they've like kind of been around the block for a while too. And they're just, maybe they grew up in an era where we don't brag, right? We don't brag.
Mhm.
Okay. We get that. We know that bragging is crass, but there's still some reasons we have to talk about it in a classy way. And I could talk about those reasons, but I feel like I'm rambling now. So
Amy, a couple of things came up for me. So there's a certain risk when you talk about PR, right? You're going to press, so to speak. Um, how do you work with someone who's reluctant, but you know that it's going to really be helpful to them, or they've been burned before? I
good
said something in
question.
public, and then it came around and boomeranged, and it hit me in a way that wasn't even my intent.
Well, ideally, we just wouldn't. So PR isn't about. It's really maybe not being in the press. PR.
Okay.
Oftentimes, with my good relationships with clients, sometimes sometimes we want to say no to press for various reasons, and so the problems I kind of talk about this in the book. My problems relating to clients is I don't want to. We don't want to be in the press, and so we have to kind of talk to our leaders about what they think and how to do that, and it's very strategic,
Mhm.
especially with some of the stuff we work on. Um, so there's that. Just know that we agree with you. We don't want to be in the press too oftentimes, but sometimes it's just going to happen. And so what we do is we get comfortable talking about it internally. And that's what I mean when I say I put you
Mm.
on a plan. We barely do press releases, by the way. We put you on a kind of a plan to talk about the things that we might want to talk about through blog posts that
Mhm.
and we can talk about why. And then in the blog post, we get comfortable with the language. And then the CEO, as we kind of write, and it doesn't have to always be a CEO, it's just what I'm thinking right now
Mhm.
but as we write, we interview the experts, we write, then it goes back to this leader, like the CEO. I mean, sorry, but when we're talking about crises and crises management, it's
Yep.
going to be the CEO.
It is going to be.
So we work directly with them and say, they'll tell us what's wrong with it. And we're like, thank you for this. We need to know. And then we work through it, right? We're working through some of the messaging a year ahead, possibly of the crisis, or if the crisis doesn't occur, that's great. So we get comfortable with various topics on a monthly schedule. That's the thing. You've got to do it on a schedule or just nothing will happen. And so then by getting comfortable through writing, we have a few things. We have approved language to use if we need to pull for a statement, and my CEO's in Mexico. Ideally, they would be in Mexico because they have lives. So then what we would do is a press needs a comment. Oh, well, they already approved this one. Here's something, and we think it fits. Done. I mean, it's not as simple as that, right? And ideally, we'd have a chain of command, and that's why we probably would never really be that aggressive to just say that, but depends on how long we've been working with them. So we have some approved verbiage. And then the other thing that's great about just doing blogs and social, even if you don't sell online, and we can talk about that, is blogs they're just good for SEO. So there's
Mm.
that, and we can talk about why that matters. And then blogs will also give you social posts, right? So we do 3 social posts. See, if you put rules around something, that makes it easier. So our rules or suggestions would be about 3 social posts per blog. So then you've got a lot of social posts, right? So that's nice. But you've got to change the copy a little bit each time, but at least you know what you're writing about. Now, why would you even want to do social when nobody's, I mean, in the industries we work in, especially like construction and manufacturing, we realize that you're not getting you might not be getting your clients from social, and you might not worry about search because of various reasons that your clients already know about you. But we need to sorry, I'm thrown off by somebody's cat, I think.
It's my cat.
I'm just very ADD, like really ADD. I just get thrown off. So we let's see.
So you're talking about blogs and getting blogs on kind of a
I'm
regular
sorry.
kind of.
Wait,
Yeah.
let me. So why that matters to be on social is because people will scope you out if you're in trouble. Let's just remember that. They will look at your social and they will look at your blogs. Clients might not, and that's fine. But but if you ever have an issue, people, and we're talking about the people that care about things. A lot of them just happen to be younger and they're just on social, right? So we just need to show positive things on social too. So it's not all negative stuff. What we do as PR people is look at all the negatives and then we kind of flip it to, and it's not a spin. It's just looking at the negatives and then just readdressing them proactively. And so with our social, if we could talk about who we sent to college last month, we better do it. And then oftentimes we say, well, if you did something great, but you didn't post about it, did it happen? I mean, I know that's a really silly way to think about things, but it's just, you have to have a paper trail. And it's easier if it's online. It's just right there and everybody can find it and we can send the press the link or whatever. And then also social does help with internal staff and recruiting.
So I have a question, Amy, going back to actually something that literally happened to us consulting with an organization. And in the context of, a good culture and happy employees, and they certainly weren't working with someone like yourself, they put up a picture of all the people in the organization smiling. And much to their surprise, they got a lot of heat for that because they were mostly one gender and they were Caucasian. And they were like, what? Where are you with DEI? And and it completely caught the leader off guard.
Yeah.
And they had to respond. And part of the response was, well, look at geographically where we are. It's not like we're not trying. So if they were working with you, and I think that is a nightmare or it keeps CEOs up at night, is without guidance from people like yourselves, you think you're doing something like the right thing and you're putting yourself out there. And then lo and behold, you haven't thought of something, or the internal dialogue, you didn't talk about it enough to say, oh yeah, but maybe we should do something different to show that this is a great place to work and attract employees. I don't know if they even had a goal for putting that picture up in that way. So, but we know that there's, that there are unintended consequences that keep some CEOs up at night.
Yeah, and then also they just don't do anything, which so there's kind
Which
of
isn't great either, right?
Right. So there's a few things to talk about. I think just it just depends on if you have marketing or not, but having just an external person who's in touch with culture is helpful. And so a lot of agencies, I'll just say they do hire young, which is helpful for me because I cannot keep up with the social trends. I don't have time. Who has time for that stuff? It's like we're actually trying to run our businesses. So we have people, but it's important, right? So we have people that a lot of firms have people that get it. And this is the point of, I guess the answer is to, even if you're not looking to bring in a contractor or for anyone external, look at your staff in a new way to think, who I need to bring an outsider into this conversation, which the outsider could be found within the company, but it might literally be the receptionist.
Sure.
And then that's honoring the receptionist by saying, I care what you think and I trust you. And just workshopping things, whatever you do publicly. But then again, that kind of delays time. But I do have to say, this happened actually to a client of mine, kind of. And this client had the most brilliant, insightful response to me. I just want to say this, that was really cool. I thought, we noticed a long time ago, this DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, we should be talking about it all the time. We should have been, right? But we weren't. Okay. We really have only, I mean, it's not true yet. People say this isn't true, but it really hasn't come on to the national screen until maybe a few years ago. But, you know, I'll just be straightforward with you. We're women, right? Like a lot of my firm, and a lot of us are a little critical because maybe we have to be, and maybe that's why we're successful. So and PR people in general, even males, we look at things kind of negatively because that's our jobs, because we have to screen for that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So even before it was popular, we saw a client do that with lists showing all their leadership online, and we got offended because we're women. And so we can feel it, right? So, but we check that, right? We hold that in, that offense, but then we think, well, what are other people thinking? And so I told the CEO, like, oh, this doesn't look good. Like, I mean, we need to have real conversations. And so this doesn't look good. Could you just take it down? And the CEO said, no, I am working towards changing it. Meaning like, no, I am not going to hide the fact that I have made a mistake in the past and this is how we have hired. We are working on actually changing it. So the answer is not to hide, it's to progress.
Okay.
Makes sense. Amy, you were talking earlier about staying out of the news. Ideally, right? And yet there is so much going on in the world today, locally, nationally, globally, that create potential landmines for CEOs. I know these keep CEOs awake at night. Landmines for the CEOs and their companies. In some cases, if you take a stance, if you take a position, you risk alienating anybody who doesn't agree. If you don't take a stance, then you leave yourself open, first, for people to speculate what your stance might be. And second, you risk alienating those who only want to do business with companies that are engaged and active beyond just profit. So it's like, gosh, do I take a stance? Do I not take a stance? There are calls on both sides. How do you navigate through that as a senior leader?
Well, I mean, it's very complex, but I think maybe the simple answer, which is also complex, is to check your actions against your core values. And then that's a great way to just kind of see what you should be doing, because if you're always worried about what people think, like in the purpose of sales, or we do have a lot of CEO that's worried about what their staff thinks first and foremost, not about sales. If we're just always worried about what people think, we're just going to be spinning our wheels. And so we just check our core values. And then if we can create systems around things so that we know we don't have to worry about it every time, then a lot of our energy is saved.
Tell me more about that. Yep. Create systems around so that we don't have to worry about it. What does that mean?
I think it's just we comment on this, but we don't comment on that. So kind of like here's kind of I guess like rules or something like, we can't do everything. Just
Right.
so it goes to with audiences and where we're talking, but it also we can talk about this from a community relations standpoint, and then that all ties into branding. So we have a company that is really involved in the community. That's nice, but they want to do like everything. They want to plant trees. They want to donate computers to kids. They want to, you see, so there's no theme. So then that becomes hard either when requests come through or whatever. Then for us as like storytellers, it's just really natural for us to connect. Like, well, you're building products, so it makes sense for you to be in donating to the environment. Whereas somebody else was really relying on tech and their staff and elevating their staff. So it makes sense to really focus just on like educating minorities, right? Like lifting them up. So there's two different things there. So that's just kind of an example of like creating rules, like, no, we're not. And also you can't have your staff volunteering all the time. So it's like, no, we're not going to plant the trees, but we will do this drop off to the Boys and Girls Center. And that's what we'll do. And then you just know you do that every year. And then it just becomes easy. And so then when you're having to kind of say no to things and not do things, so it's just hard to know how to do it. But I did have a conversation yesterday with a local business leader, Sadie Lincoln, who owns Bar 3, which is an exercise studio with 170 locations throughout. And so we were talking about prioritizing time. And I was just, because she was actually saying that engagement is the antidote to quiet quitting. That she was saying people maybe are quiet quitting now because we're not engaged with each other.
Yep.
But then I am a very literal person. So I hear that and I think, oh, so I have to engage? Does that mean I have to go to every meeting I'm invited to? Like now, how do I prioritize? And that's what she said. You're checking it. Everything's checked against the core values. So like, if the energy feels off, it might be because the core values are not there. So if your core values are around elevating your staff, let's say, then you would think, and you have women on your staff and your core values are around helping women, then maybe you would talk about something that might be in the news regarding women's rights.
Got it. Thank you.
Does someone on your staff have an HR background?
Oh, good question. No, on our staff, no, but we do work directly with, well, I have a psych degree. I don't know how much that helps, but we work directly with some diversity, equity, and inclusion companies that have married, that actually come from an HR lens.
Yeah. I had a fascinating conversation earlier today with a leader who, in the midst of talking about sustainability and carbon and the use of buildings, he had an insight that we wound up talking about, which was that it goes way beyond carbon, because we started talking about the people, and something clicked for him around how important broadening the definition of sustainability meant in his organization. It's not his organization, but he's a leader in that organization. It sounds like some of that would come up if people were working with your firm around the internal part of PR, like what you talk about,
like
what you might post about. And they just won an award from Ukraine for the work they've done to support people in some of their buildings, kind of on the borders of Ukraine. But yet when I heard that, I got really excited. Like, wow, you won this award, you repurposed some things, you helped people, you got actively involved. It was, right in the beginning. And so I guess part of my question to you is, what do you do with that? This was just having a conversation, two people, but I can see where it can go both ways.
Well,
Yeah.
that one I don't I don't see how I think that there's only good in that. I don't see that I mean, I know that we have to worry about what our customers think in terms of how are you spending your time and your money. And that might affect, but I think, with CEOs that don't want to talk about the good things that they're doing, um we talked about this a little bit, but one thing I didn't mention is the idea of role modeling good
Mm.
behavior. So again, my client, again, they're so humble. Um, but we want to talk about the good things you're doing because that's setting an example for other
Yep.
leaders. So there's that, setting an example for the leaders. And then in doing that, it just brings light to the cause. So then the PR and marketing, because it's all kind of wrapped together, we do. It's not about you. So because no one will pick that up because that's boring anyway. So the PR is not about the company, it's not about the leader. It's about something else, which is the cause or the trend, right? So if we're not in the fluff world, we're in the business world, we're looking at trends, the economy. The PR is about that. And then you are the voice piece for that thing. And then that's thought leadership. So it all
Mhm.
works together. So then thought leadership, that just gives us a topic for thought leadership.
Yeah. Yeah.
So can you explain, I'm hearing that term thought leadership show up a little bit more. Can you give us kind of an overview or kind of about what that term means and why we're starting to hear more of it?
Yeah. And I guess I would just say for business leaders, we can get overwhelmed with all these terms and what's cool and popular, and things aren't changing that much. People just put a little term on it and it's cute and people talk about it and you think, well, is this a new thing? It's like, no, this is not a new thing. This is, especially if you've had your business for a long time, you're probably a thought leader. So, but ideally we would leverage that. So all we do is as marketers is just kind of get behind and elevate the thought leader. And then the thought leader, again, now doesn't have to be the CEO. So our idea of thought leadership is literally like just taking somebody's brain, like all the great things in their brain, and just creating content out of it for them. And then the content then can be pitched to the press, whether it's a blog or whatever. And then we work our way up to speaking engagements. So thought leadership is just positioning. And then of course we can talk about social. I mean, you can be a thought leader on social, but that's kind of a whole nother thing.
Yeah. So we had one of my family's sons on, and he is in outdoor advertising. And I'm talking now about this little blurb of a company that decided to become a B Corp and 1% for the planet. And what I'm noticing because he talks about it, he's waking up an industry that's very old school. Most of the billboard advertising that people do is owned by 3 or 4 companies. They're huge. So to me, that's like an illustration of walking this line, but putting something out there in an industry that they're not in that conversation. And now they've started to get recognized of what are these people doing? Why are they doing it? Why does it matter? And why would it matter to our internal employees, or why would it matter to our clients?
Yeah, to me, that almost sounds like a change maker. He's making change. And so that sounds to some people overwhelming and unapproachable. And so that's like maybe even a next level thing. And so we can start small and we can realize we are thought leaders, and we can be thought leaders in our industry, like in the things we do day to day. There's, what you're doing, that's thought leadership. And we can be a thought leader around, our company, like what we do, or for our clients, like meaning, and then it can be external beyond clients, but what our clients do, we could be thought leaders in that because we work directly with them, or we can be thought leaders just in the economy. And those are the kind of three ways. And then what your son's doing is amazing. That's like higher than thought leadership, I think.
I think the accessibility that social media, all the different platforms give all of us, every one of us has the ability very easily to present themselves as a thought leader. And to your point, I think so often we minimize that. We hear that too with our clients. They minimize what they know because it's just natural to them. It's in their head. So they think it's in everybody's head, and they don't understand what you know, what you've been through, what you've experienced, what you're doing with it is unique. I do believe there's nothing new under the sun, right? I mean, like, so the business concepts we're teaching and you're probably doing, I mean, it's not like you are the only one doing it, but you're doing it in your way, and that's unique. And you're doing it with your voice, and that's unique. And so the platform gives all of us the ability to, I love how you said it's as simple as just getting it out of your head and creating content with it. And doing that has the potential to position you as a thought leader. All of us. I love it.
If you can, I mean, that's the thing. It's hard. Like you said, it's easier for someone else to get it out of your head, possibly.
That's true.
Well, there's the writing that takes time, but then also it's about being like a reporter and asking the right questions and drawing that out. So we do help people with applying for awards for their company, or like for let's just say 40 under 40, Portland Business Journal. I mean, some people, if they just do that themselves, they will put the most boring things on there and they won't know, because maybe they're not in touch with culture the way we are. And they might not. So an example is an executive I was talking to about this. I think he maybe was kind of embarrassed that he didn't come maybe from money. Let's just say that he had to work his way through college. So for me, that's how I can show something that's interesting. I can show some struggle. And let's just face it, for a white male, we need to show kind of a little bit of vulnerability, a little bit of struggle. And so I can take that and kind of put that in there and show kind of like bootstrap. And then, of course, helping people and all that, like employing people is important. But so I don't think that I could tell in that conversation that was something he kind of was trying to hide or dance around, that he created his company, and it was construction, remodeling, while he was in college. So that to me means like he was working through it's a different thing than I, as a privileged person, experienced.
And we all have our beliefs about and our stories about the struggle or something we want to hide. And the beauty of what you're talking about is you help people see the value of it in the larger context, and that it is a value to other people to hear your story.
Ideally, I mean, so that's the thing. You need someone who is, and it doesn't have to be a firm or anything. It can be just, I think a thought leader just might need a friend to kind of pull out information from your brain and then utilize it better. And I actually do have a talk where I talk about this in a video. It's directed towards PR people, like how to do this actually for credit union thought leaders. So anyone internal can do this. And I just say things like, just if you're volunteering, volunteer with this person. Whoever you think is interesting and has good things to say, that's your thought leader. So hang out with them, pick their brain, write everything down, and then take notes, and then create your content from there.
Yeah. Amy, back to the idea of being in the news or out of the news. I read an article the other day. It was about the executive tantrum, is what it was called, about leaders who are frustrated. In fact, heck, we are the Frustrated CEO podcast. So our leaders are potentially frustrated by certain things. They're frustrated, and they are also logged into Twitter. And those frustrations begin to come out in 140 characters, 280 characters, don't come out the right way, probably shouldn't come out at all, left to be deleted, creates a wake of issues for other people to have to jump in and clean up. How do you advise? Because it's great that you're working with CEOs who are more humble and prefer not to be in the spotlight. There are leaders out there who are looking for the spotlight. How do you advise leaders, and maybe even not just the leaders, but those around those leaders, to when and how to communicate? In particular, when you're frustrated and you're angry. I mean, it's as simple as don't.
Right. No, but that is it. I mean, I can talk about that, but that's it.
Yeah.
Don't. You need to pause. And then a trick, I mean, people know these tricks, is to write it out, in your draft emails and don't send the email. And you got to be careful because don't put the person's name on there and accidentally send it. With Twitter, I mean, so the other thing is I do think people maybe need to grow up a little bit. Like, you're a CEO. Why are you on Twitter right now? I'm sorry. I just don't get it. Like,
Yeah.
we have work to do. And this whole thing about all these, it irritates me because PR people are supposed to be on social media all the time. Well, I'm like running a business and I have clients. I'm working on my clients or the helping the staff. So I think when I see someone on Twitter a lot, I don't respect them. I'll just say that. And that's just me. Who am I? Right. But I just think, and that's probably not someone we would work with, frankly, that can't handle themselves. That's not the energy we want. And also, for the record, we don't take crisis in the middle of the crisis. We can take a crisis and plan for it. And you literally can plan for it. And so with that, I just pause. And then when in doubt, either just don't do it or bring in, because oftentimes you really want to do it. All right. I know that because I just created this post for my LinkedIn newsletter that I wanted to do because I thought it was good, but I was sick of writing it. I just wanted to get it done, but I knew something was wrong with it. So I sent it to 3 people on my team and asked them. And of course they told me back what I already knew. And it's like, oh, great. And I have to keep working on this. But that's just, I don't know why I did that. But the thing is I really just wanted to be done with it. So if I would have just posted it, but I just know it's just I guess these are practices that we think before we act, and so that we don't have to question.
Yeah. What about platforms? So I'm older. I'm not all over social media like my kids are. But I just started to get comfortable with Instagram. And then lately I noticed it's like people aren't using it the way they used to. I'm not connecting with some of my friends or family, from afar on Instagram. So, my kids are going, well, yeah, but what about TikTok? And what about and I have no clue in terms of business use of platforms other than what Patrick was just talking about, the crazy tweet that you wish you didn't tweet and all that kind of stuff. But can you say anything about that might be helpful to our listeners?
Well, the old phrase, less is more. So, I mean, first we want to look at our audiences and think about where they are. And we don't need to do something just because everyone else is doing it. So, it's just too hard to do all of it. And I'm coming from this personally. And some clients, they're not really on social, and meaning their clients are. It's not about my clients, it's about my clients' clients.
Yep.
That makes sense. Yep. So their clients aren't on social. But sometimes we use it for a paper trail, really. And so that's fine. And then I just think, so in all honesty, we really just represent more kind of B2B and businessy and manufacturing. So TikTok's just not relevant. It's just not right now. And it's relevant for me because I have a book that's $10 to sell. That's it. So I can sell something cheap on there possibly, but I'm not going to sell a huge contract for my manufacturing company on there. Okay. I mean, maybe the client's grandkid will see it, but what am I doing? So So I would just really focus on one, and then you can feel good about it. And you can only do so much. And I'm talking like personally, if you're thinking, oh, I'm going to use this personally, maybe just focus on one and then you'll forget the others. Or you, with your marketing team, if you have one on staff, just lean on them to figure out what will help reach the actual audience.
Hmm.
And then does this go back and look at the results? So that's I mean, could go full circle here in the value of your monthly kind of meetings to say, we tried this platform and it's creating a lot of discord over here, or we tried this and it's hitting the mark. So that's one way to, because let's face it, the digital world is exploding and changing at a mind-boggling pace.
Mhm.
Yeah. So being online also helps with results tracking because there's key numbers that we can look at. So even with social, we can see, oh, engagement on this post was up X, engagement was up this, that, and the other, right? Now with SEO, search engine marketing, if we have the backing on the website in place, the Google Analytics, which is what tracks hits and things, and actions, we can track. I think that's better. Just it's better to track like purchases through a website, or actions that we want, like download this enrollment form or what have you, through the website. And so that is one reason to do that. But I mean, it really all comes back possibly to sales or maybe retention and recruiting. And so with retention and recruiting, that's kind of like a gut feeling. And then with sales, you can kind of track it. But if you're doing high-end sales or you're kind of in a relationship business, then it all kind of works together. So it's just hard. So we do not we, I'm sorry, we don't really handle that, but the client, we can work a little bit on SEO through PR, which we can talk about, but our clients on the background are doing display advertising on their own as kind of a whole package. And display advertising is just about branding. And they're looking at it very detailed. And they say display advertising actually doesn't convert. We don't really know what's converting actually, but because it's like a relationship business, but we have all of these things and we can track. And what was kind of cool for us, an example is, so they were, on the Oregonian, you can purchase what's called advertorials, which is an ad, you pay for it, but it looks like an article. And they were writing them themselves. And that's fine. But then we thought, well, maybe we should write them because we kind of come from the reporting point of view and we're messaging and all that. So then we wrote them, and apparently now they can track, because we have a client that cares and looks at this stuff, right? He could look and he saw that people were staying on the page 4 times longer than before. That's amazing. That's weird. It's weird to me, but it's a big compliment to us. But to us, that does mean something.
Sure.
But we don't know where the sales are coming from, because they're coming from, you know what I mean, various places. So I know that that's very vague, but the reason also to be online is just, it's kind of like your flyer now. It's like, or like the facade of your house. It's not, we don't have paper flyers anymore. And things don't live in paper anymore because people lose it because we're so busy. And so, for instance, reporters, I'm not really going to go and walk over a press release. And almost like emailing the press release is kind of like walking it over to them at this point, with everybody's inbox so full. So then we create a press site, or like a press page on the website, and then it's all there. And obviously we email them to tell them, here's the press release, it's on here. But when they lose it, they can go back. And then also, even more important, is we pitch out blog posts to the press with the idea that maybe they would link to the blog post, and then that increases our SEO. And it really works because the press has better websites. So whenever you get a link from a press, it's better than just some random link.
Perfect.
I
You talk about complex.
Yes.
Yeah.
So going back to, let's say, this leader, this CEO who said, no, I'm going to own this, but I'm going to improve the diversity in our company. And, you're talking about or mentioned, well, get some young people in your company, especially if you're, wanting to understand more about social media, whatever the case may be. But so, let's say, so it's on the plan that 18 months from now, we're going to have 30 more people 30 and under. Whatever, I'm just making this up, right? I'm just, what we're hearing with the work that we're doing and culture surveys and things like that is that young people are more interested in purpose than they are benefits.
Yeah. And working lifestyle as well,
Yeah,
because they
right,
want to be treated like adults.
right.
And so purpose kind of ties back into it's also could be a PR theme, and it's good for storytelling. So kind of going back to the core values and looking at those and kind of seeing maybe what is our purpose through that, and then using that in your marketing. It's better. It's easier for us actually as PR people because we can get placements more easily because we can't write an advertisement and expect that to get placed. It has to be interesting, and purpose and
Mhm.
culture is actually interesting. And so it all works together. And then that helps with recruiting too, or I mean retention, because people want to feel engaged and get out and engage. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
So is it practical time?
I was just looking at the clock and wondering that same thing.
Okay.
Amy, you've been awesome. But before we let you go, it's time for us to get practical. This is the part of every episode where we try to summarize key points, key takeaways that a CEO can implement in her or his business to make inroads in any of the areas that we've talked about. So, Amy, we'll let you go first. When you think about easy steps or important steps that a CEO can take, what guidance would you have?
Well, nothing's ever easy, but right now, right now is the 2023 planning time for a lot of PR people. So
Mhm.
right now, well, we're getting to it. We're working like November, we should be working on our plans. And then in December too, because maybe we'll be slower in December and then we can have better ideas coming. And so we work on our plans for 2023. Those are the marketing plans. And so if you don't have a marketing team, I can tell you what to do. And then if you have a marketing team, well, they should just be doing this. So if you don't have a marketing team and you're kind of stuck, I have a post on my website it's a blog post that is a grid that you can fill out that is kind of simple, that we're not getting too crazy with the plans right now. We're just placing things in the plan. Like, I know I'm going to this trade show. Just write that down, right? So we place what we can in the plan, and then we maybe create some blog topics in the plan. And then we realize we're doing one blog a month if we can. So we just need 12 topics. It's not a lot. And then we schedule our monthly meetings to talk about the plan. So we start the plan now, but get the little meetings scheduled for the year. And then maybe your first meeting will be in November to kind of go over your drafts with your people. And maybe those people can be doing helping you. And then if you don't have any marketing person, maybe just grab, like I said, a friend who could help you with this and it could be a few different people helping you. So somebody who's very detail oriented, like an office manager, would be very good for just filling out the plan. Like, because I know we have this trade show and I know we have this new office coming up and this and that. That's just in the plan. Then your person who's going to elevate you, maybe that's your kind of who you think is kind of creative and fresh on your staff that might ask you good questions to get the information out to then market it. So I guess it's like picking a couple people, getting some meetings scheduled, getting your topics written down in my grid. And then if you want to be really, really, really advanced, try, and this actually aligns with your strategic planning. You could just put that in with your clients when you're planning together with them, is maybe pick your top 3 audiences that align with your top 3 goals.
Yeah.
And then all I have to say about that is not to think too hard, because you already know it, probably.
Awesome.
That's good. Beautiful. Thank you.
Mhm.
Who's
There
up?
you go, Patrick. What do you got?
Okay,
Patrick?
I'll go. Well, I mentioned it earlier, but I want to make sure it makes our Let's Get Practical. Amy, you spoke eloquently and simply about thought leadership is literally just taking everything you know out of your brain and creating content out of it. And doing so is not only good for your company, good for PR aspect, but it can position you as a thought leader. I thought that was really good. I love, and I'm going to say this because I know my colleagues have it too, but let your core values guide how and when and what your responses are to the landmines, the hot button issues, and really, I guess, to any of your communications, any content that you put out. Let your core values be your guide to make sure that you're consistent. Let's see. You spoke a lot in the beginning, the importance of getting out in front of your anticipated crises. Begin planning out now your crisis management. Be thoughtful about who the experts are. Even get those responses written and prepared now, so that when the crisis happens, you're ready. And I think you even said, hope that it doesn't. But if it does, at least you've got a plan in place. I thought that was that's good planning. I'll pause. Patsy or Leb.
All right, I'll jump in for a few that are still left. But I like the notion of applying for awards and that it can make a difference. And that's a practical step. It's not necessarily something that people can't wrap their hands around, their minds around. So I thought that was really practical and helpful. That purpose and culture actually are interesting, and that can help with attracting and retaining the talent that you want and need. And that certainly we're really aligned with that. I love the notion of helping your clients and customers know how cool they are. We are fortunate. We get to work with a lot of really great people, great companies doing the best they can in chaotic times. Internally, we often close meetings with stated appreciation, but you're taking it out to like a whole other domain. I like that a lot. I liked the notion of being online is like what your flyers were before, and it kind of fits in with sustainability, I guess. And I can't believe how much junk mail I still get. It drives me nuts, and that's on paper. And I'll stop there so Patsy can add in.
Okay. I loved the comment about think twice before you respond. Our audience is specifically CEOs, but I think that's anybody that goes near anything that's going to broadcast out to the wider world. So think twice before you respond, to Twitter, to email, to others. And when in doubt, ask somebody.
So I have 2 things to add.
Uh-huh.
Go for it.
Number one, with the awards that Lab mentioned, you can just put the deadline in your calendar. That's like, so people, it's like they get overwhelmed. Oh, what awards and this and that. I don't know. Just find the list. Have somebody in your office find a list and put the deadline in the calendar. Then you work backwards from the deadline. That's the first step. And then Oh, another kind of interesting action item I thought about was if you are the kind of CEO that's up at night, not being able to sleep, you can maybe, you've heard about journaling and writing things down. Maybe write down a list of what worries you that could be in the public. Just write it down. And then that's the beginning of A, your PR plan, and B, your crisis plan right there. Because I start with negative Nelly mindset. So you write that down, and then
That's a good one.
we have proactive messaging around it so that we don't get in the maybe we wouldn't get in the crisis. But then if we do, you do write your statements on those things.
That's very practical.
That is a really good one. Yes.
But it's really negative. So I don't want to, a lot of people that aren't going to have, and ideally you just wouldn't have too many things to put on it.
Yeah, I
No,
do.
but the beauty of getting it written down is then it's not in your head and driving you and everybody else nuts. So then at least you have something you can start to address. So I love that one.
Thanks.
You started out talking about PR starts within your own people. Have some really great things to say. So capitalize on that. And I also, the one I'll close with is know when to say yes and know when to say no to being in the press.
Well, or anything.
Well, that's true.
I mean, with it, you have someone telling you should be on TikTok. Maybe you're not selling shoelaces. I don't know. I mean, sorry, I don't want to diminish that, but it's like there's only so much we can do. It's very stressful.
Yeah. There's one other that I took, and I laughed when you said it, Amy, because this is now 2 shows in a row where our guest has said to our listener, it's not about you. You said that you're talking about we're in an age of employee-centric PR, that it's not about you, the CEO, and figure out how to leverage your people in the people in the trenches who are the experts and position them as experts. But our last guest, Jamie Dixon, talked about that in terms of storytelling and shifting your focus away from you and onto the audience. It's not about you. So I don't know, two episodes in a row, listener, it's not about you.
Yeah, I guess that is kind of also looking at building your team when you're thinking about positioning others. So I think the practical tips were to find someone to help you. So maybe you can pick 3 thought leaders for each one per area.
Yeah.
Spread it around. Yep.
I had one more that I really liked, which is align your top 3 audiences with your top 3 goals. That's a big deal. And it also brought to mind perhaps someone leading a company who's scrambling, going, who are my top 3 audiences? And, so I just thought that was great. And, that level of alignment is very strategic.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's our goal, is not to just be doers of press releases and be strategic.
Amy, if someone, go ahead, Patsy.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, if somebody is interested in learning more about you, the company, Veracity, or contacting you directly, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, our company website is veracityagency.com, and my contacts is on there. And then you can follow me on LinkedIn, because I am posting now because I'm planning ahead. And I'm kind of doing it ahead. And guess what? I'm doing it even the writing ahead of time during the slow times, like the holidays.
And your podcast?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm not good at personal promotion. That's PR Talk. And there's a link to the podcast on the website, or you can just find it wherever you listen to podcasts. And we interview thought leaders, not just the press. And ideally not just PR people. We want to kind of broaden our horizons now.
Beautiful.
And then I would put one more plug in. You've given us some really good practical tools and tips, which I know all of these are in your book. I think your book really drills down into some very clear, specific actions, which is your book Can you remind us of your book and where to get it?
And I'll just clarify because it's a modern guide to public relations, and the book is good for maybe a staff person that you want to just handle your PR. So it's really, there's a few kind of bigger concepts in there, but it really is like practical, and it's just how to do the things that a CEO is not going to do. You just can't, you don't have time. So someone can do it. Just read the book.
That's great.
Which is good. Very practical. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. And there's videos aligned with the book if people have questions on what the book is talking about, like any of the tips in there.
Beautiful.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it.
Fantastic gift. Yes.
Thank you.
And
thank you. It's so fun.
That's right. Thank you. And listener, thank you for sticking with us to the end of another episode. Amy Rosenberg, thank you so much for joining us today. Listener, you can find this episode's Let's Get Practical on our website at thefrustratedceo.com, as well as all of our previous episodes and those companion Let's Get Practicals as well. We invite you to connect with each of us, with Patsy, with Leb, and with me on LinkedIn as well. We'd love to hear from you with show ideas. And if you're interested in being a guest on the Frustrated CEO podcast, then by all means, let us know. You can contact any one of us through LinkedIn. I think that's it. Anything else for the good of the cause?
Bravo.
No, thank you.
Thank you so much. Then we will see you again on the Frustrated CEO podcast.